Sorry about that. I had to sneeze. But when a rider is on a bike, they get into a natural rhythm with the bike. You move from side to side with the bike, and the bike actually flexes beneath. Pardon me. Actually flexes beneath the rider as they move, and you work with the bike. You work with the material, and you get into this very natural rhythm. And that rhythm propels, as you work with the bike, it propels you down the road, turns the cranks over, and down the road you go. It's quite possible that most people who ride don't even realize that this is occurring, but it's like a vibration. You actually get on the same vibrational frequency almost. And from doing that, you work with the machine and you propel it down the road. Well, when I was on the flats and when I was on gentle sloping climbs, this bike was, it was very easy for me to find that rhythm, and I was astounded at how this bike just rocketed straight up hills, or straight up gentle climbs. When I hit big hills, though, is when I got the shock. And the way I was shocked was the fluid transitions, which are in my muscle memory, that I've established for the last several years riding with my old aluminum frame, don't work on this frame. And what I mean by that is you go spinning into a relatively large climb, and you're in the saddle, and you're kicking over the crank, and then at some point what I will generally do is go to a slightly stronger gear and stand out simultaneously and begin to spin the cranks while climbing. You alternate between sitting and standing as you climb relatively large hills. Well, as soon as I did that, I was at a loss for how to do this, because this bike is different than my old bike. Number one, as I've already told you, it's stiffer, but number two, it's got a different geometry. And what I mean by that is, well, I'm not going to get into that. It's too complicated, but I've always ridden a traditional geometry, and this is what's known as a compact geometry. And one of the realities of compact geometry is the center of mass on the bike is lower. So when I would go to make these transitions to a standing up riding position, I didn't know where I was on the bike. I didn't know all this muscle memory that I had that told me where the center of gravity was and how I needed to move astride the bike were wrong. And it was startling to me each time that I encountered it. Now, this is something that I will learn over time. I will learn how to become fluid, and it will become a seamless and fluid motion for me to transition to sitting to standing when I'm climbing. I just need to learn how to do it, and I need to understand how to do it on this bike. So that is something that I'm looking forward to perfecting. And as I said, it's something which will definitely come with time. I've just got muscle memory that involves thousands and thousands of miles on different equipment, and I've got to learn how to use this equipment. And I'm sure that once I get around to it, it will be seamless and perfect. But right now it isn't, and each time it startled me, because it was so easy for me to get into a rhythm on the flats and get into a rhythm on the gentle upslopes. But that transition to standing, I have no understanding of how to do it quite yet. But that'll come. And I'll be doing a fair bit of it this weekend, because we were in New Oxford, Pennsylvania last weekend, and this weekend we're going to stay in Baltimore, and there's quite a bit of very, very, very large hills around here. So I'm going to get a chance to do some half-a-kilometer climbs with like sloping 6 to 9% gradients. And once I do that, I'll have I would assume not too many of those hills, I will have a much better understanding of how to make these transitions on this bike. I did make a few small changes to my setup after the first ride. The one thing that I did is I moved some wedges, which are small shims, which some cyclists use in their cleats that are attached to their shoes. And effectively what they do is most people don't have a flat strike on their foot. They actually strike on the outside and then roll slightly to the inside as they walk. And since a bike pedal is perfectly flat by structure, what a wedge does is a small wedge that is a little wider on the inside and narrower on the outside, and you put it on the underside of your cleat. So when you hit, you actually have a slightly turned angle of attack, and in theory you're supposed to be able to get a more efficiency through the pedal stroke. I put these on last year and I rode with them and they were fine last year. I actually had 2 yellow ones on each cleat, and I found that after the first day of riding that both of my feet hurt, and I think it may have had something to do with the lack of compliance on the bike, meaning the stiffness of the bike. So I took one out of each foot, and when I rode on day 2, it was much more comfortable, and I didn't have any foot pain. So that was the appropriate move, I would guess. As I mentioned, I think I mentioned before, I got a ride with Max on Saturday, and that was an enormous amount of fun. He actually asked to go on the ride with me, and we did about 8 kilometers, maybe 9. I'd have to go back and look at the data. And he asked to go up the big hill, so I was very happy to see that. Max, like most kids, is not into suffering yet, and let's face it, road cycling is about suffering, and unless you can enjoy the suffering of bike riding, you're never going to really be into road cycling. So I was very happy to see Max ask to do that. Last thing that I'd like to say is, though the bike is more stiff, it is definitely more comfortable. And how do I know that? I know that because I rode almost 80 kilometers over the last 2 days. They're really the first 2 truly substantial rides of the season, and I feel absolutely fine today. There's no pain anywhere in my body. I feel a little tired, but I do not feel any aches and pains, and that's kind of amazing, because if I had done that on my aluminum bike, even when I was in shape, I would have felt something the next day. I feel nothing. Now, I did my cycling shaving this weekend, so I was very comfy when I was on the bike, and I'm safe now. But I was shocked there was no pain in my legs, no pain in my trapezius, no pain in my back, no just minor aches and pains, which I'm relatively used to at this age, considering all the cycling that I've done. So hence I'm pretty convinced that I've got the right bike. I don't know if I've got the final bike for me. I may find that 10 years from now, when I'm in my mid-50s, that this bike may be too stiff for me then. It's not too stiff for me now. It'll be great for the next 10 years, I would imagine. I'm going to get everything that I can possibly get out of my cycling, the remainder of my cycling life. But I can see a point, maybe 10 years from now, where I'm going to want something that's a little more compliant. But right now, I'm ecstatic. I'm very happy. And I will see you next week with more to report. Thanks. Bye-bye.